This is an oral history interview with Miss Elsa Badger by Christopher DeCipio, conducted on March 26, 1984, at 16 Bradford Road, Newton Highlands, Massachusetts. This interview is conducted as part of the Public History class of Boston College, a project of the Newton Free Library, Newton, Massachusetts. The general subject area we will be covering is people at work in Newton Highlands from 1920 to 1950. All right, Miss Badger, where did you work?
Where did I work?
Yes.
I worked for the Arkwright Boston Manufacturers Mutual Fire Insurance Company in Waltham. That Waltham tenure of office was for about 12 years, but I was with the same company in Boston for 33 years, so my whole record with the company actually figured was 42 years, 4 months, and 1 week.
Okay. So, what were your duties?
I was secretary to the vice president throughout that time. It wasn't always the same vice president. They left, or I wore them out, and I stayed on. But that was mainly my duty. And during the Second World War, I was head of the War Damage Insurance Department in the same company, which of course was a government agency.
Okay. Do you remember your first salary?
I graduated from Simmons in 1925, and I was one of the lucky members of my class who had a job at $1,300 a year, which was about $25 a week. And I thought I was really lucky because I was one of the few people that had a job.
Did you consider that enough money to live on?
Well, yes, in this respect, that I was living at home with my parents and I didn't have all the upkeep expenses at that time. So naturally I thought it was fine.
And you say that there was high unemployment then? And
it was hard to get a job in 1925. And in that period, in the senior class in which I was, students of a high or fairly good average had an opportunity to work in a Boston office 1 day a week just for practice. I had that opportunity. I worked in the office. That's the office to which I went, where I stayed 42 years.
Okay, and what age did you start?
At what age? I was 22, I think, approximately. Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. And what did you study at Simmons?
Well, it was then called the School of Secretarial Studies, so it was business studies.
Business school.
Shorthand, typewriting, of course French, Spanish, psychology, sociology, and related subjects of that sort in the secretarial course. It was then called the School of Secretarial Studies. Yeah, I think it's now called the School of Business. In fact, it may not exist as a school of that sort now. I don't know.
And do you have any opinions on what college was like back then as compared to now?
Well, I don't know much what it's like now, you see. I have not been associated with the college for a long time. But we were very earnest and very serious in our studies, and we knew, at least we hoped, that we were preparing ourselves for a vocation. The Simmons slogan at one time there was education plus a vocation. Maybe it was vocation plus education, but that was the slogan.
How did you get to work?
How did I get to work? I lived right here in this house. I walked to the Elliott station on the train, went in on the train to the stop on the MBTA Longwood, and walked to the college. That was for the first year and a half of my college career. Then at Christmas time, in the sophomore year, I moved into the dormitories and lived in the dormitories. So that wasn't very difficult.
Okay, and how did you get to your job?
Walk? Sure. Oh, no, excuse me. No, the job, it was in Boston.
See.
I went in on the, it wasn't the MBTA, it was a train, you know, a locomotive, not this. It was the same line, but it was a train. So we went in on the train on the 821.
Was it that most people took the train, or did anybody have a car, or?
Oh, heavens, no. I didn't have a car. Very few had cars. And we all took the train, and you met all your neighbors down at the Elliott station and went in on the train. And right into the South Station. And it was a very comfortable way to travel. Go in on the 821 and come out on the 518.
And, well, you said you started in 1925, and 4 years later the Depression comes, the stock market crashes. What effect did that have on your job, or just the way you live?
Well, actually, I was fortunate. Didn't have a tremendously bad effect. I remember, I think it was 1932, when everybody in the company that I worked for, received quite a substantial cut across the board in their salaries, from the president down to the office boy. So that was what I felt. It wasn't serious, but that was a result of the Depression.
And what about the area, the neighborhood you lived in? How was that affected by the Depression? Were there like hard times?
I don't think so. Just about like this. I lived in this house, as I told you, 60-something years, and I don't know that it was affected. Just nothing that I would have observed. I was a young person, and it's like now it's like it was then, because there are a lot more children in this neighborhood now. There was a period when there weren't so many, but now they're here again, which is the way we were when we were growing up. I'm one of 5 children.
What effect did the World War II have on your job?
Well, I mentioned that I was head of the War Damage Insurance Department, and that kept me plenty busy. There was certain angles of the work that I really and truly didn't understand, so I had to take the leaflets that the government provided home and study them, see what I had to do the next day. I didn't really know a lot about the job, but I'll throw a little bouquet at myself and say that at the end of the period, when the War Damage Corporation work was all over, there came a very nice letter of commendation to the president of the company, my company, in which the government praised the president of the company for the well-handled work that the War Damage Corporation did. And the president of my company very kindly referred the letter to me, and he said, "This is due to your work and that of another person that I worked with," which was very nice.
And what did the War Damage Company do? What did it handle?
Its purpose was to reimburse a policyholder for any damage caused by the war. That's what I believe, yes. And my company, the Arkwright Boston, I just told you, which was then called only Boston Manufacturers Mutual Fire Insurance Company, acted as a fiduciary agent. And we collected the premium from the company that was insured and recorded it and harbored it, and the money was there to pay a loss if there was a loss, but I don't recall that we paid any losses. No, I don't think the war damaged any properties here which the War Damage Insurance Corporation would have paid for.
In Newton Highlands, what were the big employers? Who were the big employers?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Or locally? Just
The big employers? Gosh, I don't know. You mean what kind of industries were there here?
Yes.
Well, there was a plumber and...
So there were no real
no
factories
big,
or...
Well, that Miracle Mile didn't exist. You know what I mean by the
Yes.
Miracle Mile?
Yes.
It didn't exist
Okay.
then.
And before, you had mentioned something about the Atlas
Yeah, oh yes.
Corporation.
Mm-hmm. That was called, you want me to tell about that?
Sure.
That was called the Atlas Film Corporation, run by Royal Dadman, D-A-D-M-U-N. And in my teen years, I guess that's when it was, they were filming a picture called The Phantom Honeymoon. And we teenagers, I mean 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds, which we were at that time, were hired for the fillers in the scene, like a wedding scene. We had to have a lot of people in the wedding, and we were it. And I'll just tell you a little about that. And then the pictures were taken in the summertime, and we put on an evening dress. Oh, hot days, put on our evening dress, and got the grease paint on our faces and all. Went over to the Royal Dadman Corporation, and were in the mob scenes when they had to take those pictures. Then in the fall, we'd go in town to Boston, to the Globe Theater, and see ourselves on the movie screen. That was thrilling. And there was one scene that we loved. They had to have an automobile accident in the picture. There's a gully over there, and they had an old car, and they tossed it down the gully and took a picture of that. Oh, we thought that was great. And that was Vernon Steele was playing in it, and he was rather a well-known movie character in those years.
Very interesting.
What else do you want to ask me?
What did you do for entertainment during your college years?
Oh, heavens. I was very interested in athletics. I got some kind of a placement award for the javelin throw. I was always strong and husky, and I could throw the javelin quite far. And I used to love to play tennis. And for recreation, I always loved music, and I've been a member of several orchestras.
Oh, really?
Yeah, playing the cello. So that's been very nice. And also in college, I was a member of the mandolin club. So music was a strong interest with me, has always been. I've been a member of the Newton Symphony Orchestra, the Wellesley Symphony at the time.
We can stop.
Just stop for a minute.
Okay.
A member of the High Pines Symphony. Maybe it was just High Pines Orchestra, I'm not sure. It met over in Dedham and was conducted by a member of the Boston Symphony. And we were, all those of us who joined it, were very faithful in our attendance, and we always put on wonderful concerts. A lot of fun.
What was it like living in Newton Highlands? Have you noticed any great changes from, say, you lived here such a long time?
I've lived here all the time. You know Route 9 that goes up here?
Right.
That was then, it still is, Boylston Street, but everybody calls it Route 9. The railroad bridge that goes over the Route 9 is just beyond the Elliott Station.
Yeah.
I remember very well the night that bridge was swung into place. There was a bridge, but it wasn't anywhere near the width that it is now. I suppose they widened the street, I guess, I don't know. But all the neighbors went to that area where the bridge is about 2 o'clock in the morning to see the bridge swung into place. That was very thrilling. And I have no idea when that was, but a long time ago.
And what effect did Route 9 have on the community now that it's such a major artery?
Well, on Route 9, which was then Boylston Street, the Boston Worcester Street Railway Company had the trolley cars. It was a track there. And you could go to Worcester on the streetcar, which I did quite often with my father, because he was a lumber salesman, as I said, and he had to go to Worcester to deal with the lumber dealers in Worcester. And sometimes in the school vacation, if I'd been a good girl, he would take me to Worcester on the streetcar. It was a thrill, except those old streetcars. They sway, and then the hot box would get on fire, the top of the car that they call it, and the smell and the fumes and the swaying, then I'd become nice and car sick, so I didn't go very often.
What was it like as a child in Newton Highlands?
Well, I don't know, what does it mean as a child? We walked to school, we didn't have any automobiles.
Right.
And I lived right here, and if my mother wanted a loaf of bread in the morning, I don't mean on a school day, but we'll say Saturday, send me to the store up to the square, Newton Highlands. Be home again, then she'd find that she'd need something else, a pound of sugar or something, go up again. I didn't think anything of it, going more than 2 or 3 times a day to the Highlands, always referred to as the Highlands, the square, Newton Highlands Square. So it was a wonderful childhood. We had nice kids in the neighborhood. We all had roller skates, and in the wintertime we had sleds. And my father made something for us kids, which we thought was marvelous. This is when we lived on Beamuth Road. He took a broomstick, cut it in half so there were two pieces about that long, and put a ferrule on the end of each one with a spike in it. And then we sat on our sleds and pushed ourselves on the ice. Oh, we traveled all over the Highlands that way. We thought that was wonderful. He was very ingenious and fixed up all kinds of nice playthings for us. My father.
Are you a member of any church?
Yes. I'm a member of the Newton Highlands Congregational Church, which I have been a member of since 1916. Figure it out.
I passed that on the way in.
What?
I passed.
Oh, sure. It's a big
congregation.
Fieldstone church. And as recently as this year, January, I retired as clerk of the church. I don't know what your affiliation is. Are you Protestant or Catholic?
Catholic.
I thought you were, so you wouldn't be familiar with the clerk, the work of a clerk in a church.
No.
Well, I was the clerk in that church for 16 years. And that means the person that takes record of the people who join, the people who leave, the people who die, the children who are baptized, the marriages that take place, and those functions, and the annual meeting reporting and such things as that. And I was clerk for 16 years, and I retired in January of this year because I thought I'd done it long enough.
Have you gone to church all your life?
Sure. I'm a good girl.
Did the church provide activities for you?
Well, there was almost always a church picnic, and that usually took place in June, I guess it was. Just an outdoor picnic, and probably there were recreational games there. I don't remember especially about that. Maybe they have more activities for young people there now. I don't know. But of course, there's a church school nursery or something like that is operating there in the church now right along. But I don't recall that we as children subscribed to that in any way. We went to Sunday school, naturally. We went to church with our parents, with my mother. My father didn't go. But any recreational activities, I don't recall anything particularly outstanding.
All right, I'd like to finish up with two questions. One is, what if you could just kind of sum up what life in the Highlands has been like? What's your opinion of it as far as the people and just the houses and the whole area?
I think that life in the Highlands, from my own experience, is very comfortable. Nice people, friendly neighbors, very cooperative neighbors. I'm lucky in my respect. You see, I live alone now since my brother died and my parents have died. And my neighbor across the street there is very helpful in the winter. He runs his snowblower up the driveway for me. My neighbor across the street here takes out my rubbish every Monday night for me. And he has often said to me, if there's anything I can do for you, if you need me for any help, call me. If it's the middle of the night, call me. So, and these people are brand new within a couple of years. Very friendly neighbors. All of the neighbors are very friendly and cooperative here. And it's a nice community to live in. If you wanted to get married, live here, come ahead.
And the last question I'd like to ask you is, how have you enjoyed working all these years?
I loved it. When I became 65, and I had to retire because it was a company rule, that date, it so happened that I retired, was a Wednesday. And it was the strangest sensation to wake up Wednesday morning, and not have to go to work. I did it for 42 years. And then I didn't have to go to work that Wednesday. And a friend of mine, now passed away, did a very kindly thing for me, a kind thing for me. She called me up that day, and she said, oh, I have to go out too, and she mentioned some place, I don't know. Why don't you come with me? Well, I never thought that I'd be free to go anywhere on Wednesday except to work. So I went with her, and it was a lot of fun to have that, all of a sudden, to have that free time. But it was a sudden transition. I loafed for a year, and I didn't want to loaf anymore, so then I got a job I forget the sequence exactly, but I think it was the first part-time job I had with an engineering company in a secretarial way. Then I worked for the Alumni Association of Radcliffe College for a short time. Then I worked for an employment agency in Cambridge for a short time. And I had enough of those little jobs. So one day I thought I'd get a job in R.H. Stearns. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
R.H. Stearns was a marvelous department store, which was located in Boston and had an outlet in Chestnut Hill and one in Wellesley. In Chestnut Hill, it's where Bloomingdale's is now. You know that?
Yes.
Well, R.H. Stearns was the store in which the cream of Boston society traded, because the old ladies could get just the style of dress they wanted, or just the style of underwear, or hats, or pocketbooks. It wasn't only for old ladies, but they had high quality material. So I thought, my gosh, I know a friend of mine in the personnel department. I wonder if I can get a part-time job. So I called her up. It was November, and getting busy for the Christmas season. He said, sure, I think so. So I went, and they put me in the department selling handbags and pocketbooks, of which I knew nothing. I had to learn about them. I worked there for a while, and off and on throughout 9 years, I worked on a part-time basis at R.H. Stearns, mostly in Chestnut Hill, but sometimes in Wellesley, same company. Handbags, stockings, jewelry, what do you call it, sheeting, bed linen. I guess those are the departments. And I ended up in the women's dress department, of which I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know anything about style, but I could sell an article if the customer wanted to buy it. And in 9 years, I had that part-time job with Stearns. Not every day, but it was a wonderful part-time job, because it was so part-time that they'd call me up and they'd say, oh, can you come to work tomorrow night at 5 o'clock? Or will you come Friday at 10 o'clock? Anytime. And I was almost always able to fill it in with their schedule, and I liked it very much because it was a good little part-time job.
Well, this has been great.